How to Live Through an Executive by L. Ron Hubbard. Section 3. Evaluation is of prime importance. A communicator deals in facts. One of the most important things he does with facts is evaluate them. The communicator is not running a library, he is running a brain. There is a difference. There are 10 million books sitting in libraries today, crammed full of facts. These facts are practically no good to anyone because they have not been evaluated. They show that somebody was very busy collecting facts, but they show nothing else. If we wish to get some good from these facts, we must go into the library and begin to evaluate all the facts we can find on the subject in which we are interested. We must evaluate them against our own experience. Many fields which pass for science today are little more than vast silos of unevaluated and therefore useless facts. The facts which a communicator must relay and file are meant to be useful at the moment of relay and later whenever they are obtained from the file. Therefore, they must be evaluated. If Jacqueline in the business office orders a new lamb's wool coat through the purchasing department, in order to get the company discount, her order will go through the communication system. In the same office, the datum may turn up that the second vice president is planning to sell the land on which the plant is located. The communicator in that office will have to put both these things on the line, since he is not building a library but running a brain. He cannot put both these items on the line with the same evaluation. He will have to give Jacqueline's coat the lowest rating and the vice president's deal the highest rating. A datum is as important as the number of other data it evaluates. The sale of land would affect everyone who worked in the plant. All the equipment, all the orders, the whole business, in other words, Jacqueline's coat affects only Jacqueline and somebody in the purchasing department for a brief period. The sale of the land will change all the planning in the organization. Jacqueline's coat will change no planning at all. Of course, if Jacqueline's coat were mink, it might have a greater significance, but the communicator would not care about that. He is not an investigator, he is a communicator. If Jacqueline's coat is mink, that fact will appear in the files, but it will still bear the lowest importance rating. The detective who comes around to find out about Jacqueline and the vice president may find the code communication very rewarding. If the detective sends a message to the president about all this, the communicator may care to mark that message important, but the communicator does not take it upon himself to investigate, criticize, correct, or assist anyone in the organization about anything but communication. On the other hand, if the communicator finds that his messages do not get through, he will use every means at his disposal to find out why. When it comes to communication, he is as sensitive to the flow of his lines as an electronic meter, and he is jealous of their continued life and liberty. The communicator has authority on one subject only, communication. When the system fails in any way, he does not rest until it is restored. In the course of finding out why his communication line is not working, the communicator may uncover a vast plot against the organization. He is not interested in it. The moment he gets his line open again, his work is done. If the line is open, if all lines are open everywhere in the system, the plot will come to light. Someone on the command line will notice it and do something about it. All the communicator has to do is keep the lines open. The communicator does not originate orders or messages of any subject but communication. It is not up to him to pass around his opinions on the state of the organization. That would be an investigator's job. If someone on the command line were doing a destructive or non productive job, that fact would appear in the communications which were filed from that department. The communicator might, if he were not too busy, have an opinion on this individual, but he would not voice it. If, however, this individual failed to answer messages or to send routine reports through on time, the communicator would take every necessary action to correct this, even to a report to the president himself. But if the communicator reported to the president, he would only report that the lines of the individual in question had broken down and that he had no way to repair it. He would say nothing about the work of the individual. He would not have to. A failed communication of that magnitude would show that something was terribly wrong. It would be up to the command line to find out what it was. A clear distinction must be made between the importance of a communication and its velocity. Of course, the more important a datum is, the higher velocity it may be expected to have. But there will be many exceptions to this. The most frequent exception will be the order which has a time limit. A car is ordered to meet the incoming representative of the Salt Lake City branch. This representative does not expect to be met. He expects to take a cab. He has always taken a cab. He is used to it. He likes it. Obviously, the importance of this order is small. If it were not carried out, no one would know the difference. On the other hand, the order is given on Tuesday morning at 11 a.m., and the plane is due to arrive at 11:28. If this order is to be carried out at all, it must have the highest velocity of which the communication system is capable. There is then no fixed relationship between importance and velocity. From time to time, there will be very important data on the line which still will have the lowest velocity to the shipping department if consignment X32 is not out of the state by March 31st. The entire plant will be confiscated by the government. Lowest velocity? Why? Because the date of the order is March 2nd and the consignment X32 is known to be ready for shipping. This order would be marked top importance, but it would not be a rush order. On the other hand, if the date were March 30, we might expect the chief communicator to take the express elevator to the shipping department and stand there until the shipment went out. The velocity of a datum depends mainly on the amount of the operation which it will correct or interpret. If a book is being printed and a datum turns up which changes the title of four of the chapters, that datum must be handled as fast as possible. That datum has a higher and higher priority as the moment of starting the presses approaches. After the presses start, it will not be worth stopping them. It will be too late. At that moment, the datum has no priority. It goes back through channels at the usual traffic rate to make trouble for somebody who gave the order too late. It goes into the files to show who was at fault and what happened, but its velocity is no longer high. It is just a record of the fact that the communication system received this order too late. Many an individual on a command point will overrate his dispatches. He will send out positively foolish orders at top velocity. The communicator is not so much interested in how foolish the orders are. His job is to estimate the amount of the operation this order will interrupt. Chances are, if it is so foolish, it will be refused, whether it is top velocity or merely traffic velocity. If the communicator knows that there is a good reason for refusing this order, he has one course of action open to him: not to block the message or write "please ignore this" on the message, but to attach the message related material from the files which show that the order is impractical. When he does this, he is running his communication systems like a brain. He is aligning the data in the organization's memory with the newly received data so that the organization can reach a valid decision. If the order is marked top velocity but consists of a request for a dozen toggle bolts to be kept in stock until next year, the communicator will have to reevaluate the velocity. These top velocity messages can knock everything else off the line and take up a lot of the system's time and effort. They should not be frequent. The communicator marks top velocity off the message with his blue pencil and substitutes traffic. The communicator might use three classifications in his grading based on the degree of change in plans which would be caused by the message. Operational interruption would be the highest classification, or just interruption. Alert might be the next, traffic would be the third. Only a few communications would be marked alert, very few would be marked interruption. This kind of classification, however, would not distinguish between importance and velocity. The communicator might decide that it was necessary to distinguish, so he would adopt probably a system of numbers and letters. In various organizations, various grading systems have been used. The kind of grading done depends on the purpose of the grader. In military intelligence operations, information may be graded in terms of the reliability of the informant and the probability which the operative thinks the information has. To paraphrase it, the letter A to D to paraphrase it, the letters A to D stand for the reliability of the informant, and the numbers 1 to 5 stand for the probable truth of the information. A stands for a person of known integrity who was trained to report on the subject. B stands for a person of unknown integrity who is trained. C is a person of known integrity who is untrained, and D is a person of unknown integrity who is also untrained. The numbers 1 to 5 are diminishing degrees of probability. The number 5 would stand for improbable. D5 then would be slang for the worst information an operative could get his hands on: an impossible story from an ignorant liar. A communication system might be given the job of grading every piece of information in this way. Each individual on a command post who originated a message would be graded from A to D regardless of rank. The communicator could not allow himself to be fooled by rank. The vice president might be given to exaggerations or bluffing. He might talk a lot and know little. It would be up to the communicator to decide. Under such a plan, a message from the vice president to the painter might be headed: Vice Pres Jones to Painter Department Smith, C3 limb traffic, which would mean Jones is honest, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. This message has limited importance. That is, it will affect a limited portion of the operation. Its velocity is routine. The painter would not be bound by this evaluation in any way. If he thought Jones the last word and the message of transcendent importance, he could act accordingly. The evaluation would serve only to give this message what the communicator thought was proper handling and to give it some useful rating later in the file. It would serve to expedite those few messages which need expediting. It would help the person who was looking over the line to see what was happening at a glance. His eye would be caught by the symbols which stood for important or rush, two different things, it should be remembered. Maximum alertness would exist without any limitation on traffic. The system which is being described could be cut down for a small organization. Naturally, in an organization of 10 persons, a much simpler system would be used. The system which is being described would work as an organization which covers 1,000 towns, 1,000 military companies, 100 departments, or a government. Anyone in such an organization who wanted to hear from anyone else or have his communications received would have to learn how to communicate through the system. He would have to learn how to make his messages terse without leaving out information. If he wrote a 10-page letter to the president or the commanding officer or the chief administrator, reporting an argument with a coworker and resigning his position, the communicator would simply refuse the message. The communicator would insist that he simplify the message to, I don't get along with Jones, he is unreasonable, I quit. The 10-page letter could be kept in the files as a reference, and its existence could be noted on the message, or it could be attached to the message as an information sheet, but the communicator cannot permit the message to take such a form that the president will not read it or will waste time reading it. The communicator has to keep the lines flowing. Probably the worst type of message which can be sent is the recorded voice. Records made on dictating machines are sometimes sent as messages. This kind of message is the perfect example of what can be wrong with the communication. It has every possible fault built into it as an integral and inevitable part of it. First of all, it is meant to save someone's time. A typist, but it wastes the time of the person to whom it is sent, who is presumably more important than a typist. Second, it is an invitation to the sender to be wordy. Whoever heard of sending a sound scriber record with only 1 minute of recording on it? That would be wasting the record, wouldn't it? Value several pennies. So the sender fills up the record with friendly chatter, all 15 minutes of it. Then at the last minute, he thinks of something else he has to say and turns the record over. Having done that, he has filled up that side too. 1/2 hour of time for the sender, 1/2 hour of time for the receiver. A full hour is spent by this organization in communicating ideas which might have been put down on paper in 10 minutes and read in 1 minute. Third, the record is blank unless it is played on a machine. This means that it cannot be evaluated anywhere along the line, that it breaks the communication line. In other words, fourth, it cannot be filed or cross indexed. It can only be put away under one subject head, and there it will stay until the end of time or until the building burns down, as the building will if it is being used by people who would try to communicate with disk. For who will take it out of the file again? It would have to be played on a machine, and no one has the 1/2 hour required to play it. In other words, a disk is completely blank to all but the sender and the receiver. And if the receiver is smart, he will not bother to listen to it either. If an executive had 16 subordinates, each of whom would send him one record each day, he would spend 8 hours a day listening to records which brought him 8 minutes information, a ratio of 60 to 1. Of course, since an executive is expected to work at least 20 hours a day, subordinates continue to use disk. A principle which the communicator must know is that communications get briefer and better evaluated as they go up toward the top of the command line. They must or they will not be read when they arrive. Conversely, communications need usually to be more detailed as they go down the command line. Instructions have to be full of data in inverse ratio to the receiver's height on the command line. Section 4, the progress of a message.
L. Ron Hubbard's How to Live Through an Executive, written in his characteristically authoritative and hyperbolic style, provides an interesting perspective on communication in organizations. However, his advice should be considered with a critical eye due to several reasons. Key points and issues. Importance of evaluation. He correctly emphasizes the importance of evaluating information in a knowledge-based environment. The ability to filter, assess the importance, and prioritize information is crucial in a world with information overload. Context matters. While he argues for evaluating facts against experience, this can be limiting. Current conditions, broader industry knowledge, and other outside factors also play a role in fully understanding the significance of information. Command line responsibility. His view that communicators must merely pass along messages without judgment could lead to problematic information flow. It's vital for communicators to flag questionable content or potential issues, especially where they may have more knowledge about the communication system than the sender. Overemphasis on velocity. He focuses heavily on speed of delivery. While urgent situations exist, modern communication tools allow information to move quickly. Accuracy and clarity may sometimes need to take priority over pure speed. Outdated technology references. The reliance on physical records, emphasis on hard copies, and dismissal of dictation machines reveal the age of the text. Current technology offers far greater efficiency. Modern considerations. Critical thinking over obedience. It's important to encourage evaluative thinking at all levels within an organization, not just communication specialists. Collaboration and dialogue. Modern communication within organizations often emphasizes open dialogue and shared responsibility for the validity of information. Information security. The role of the communicator now extends to include aspects of information security and protection of sensitive data. Technological adaptation. Today's communicator must be tech-savvy, understanding tools like instant messaging, collaboration platforms, and various digital communication channels. Conclusion. While some of Hubbard's observations remain relevant, his text should be read within the context of its time and with a critical approach. Modern communicators need a more nuanced, adaptive, and ethically grounded approach to managing information flow within an organization. Let me know if you'd like me to address any particular aspect in more detail.
Please apply the following from Section 3 to sharing information on social media and producing our own news articles with the verification of chatbots. The velocity of a datum depends mainly on the amount of the operation which it will correct or interrupt. If a book is being printed, and a datum turns up which changes the titles of 4 of the chapters, that datum must be handled as fast as possible. That datum has a higher and higher priority as the moment of starting the presses approaches. After the presses start, it will not be worth stopping them. It will be too late. At that moment, the datum has no priority. It goes back through channels at the usual traffic rate, to make trouble for somebody who gave the order too late. It goes into the files to show who was at fault and what happened. But its velocity is no longer high. It is just a record of the fact that the communications system received this order too late.
Absolutely. Here's how those principles of communication from L. Ron Hubbard can be translated into sharing information on social media and producing news articles with chatbot verification. Understanding velocity in the digital world. Correction and interruption. In social media, a datum might be a viral tweet, a piece of breaking news, or a trending topic. The velocity with which you share or publish information should depend on how much correction or interruption it might cause in the public narrative. Erroneous information or poorly timed updates must be handled swiftly before they cause widespread misunderstanding. The printing press moment. Think of going live with a news article or publishing a social media post as your printing press moment. It's the point where the information goes out to a wide audience and retracting it becomes difficult. Before that moment, verification and priority are critical. After the fact, if information is found to be misleading or incorrect after publication, it becomes a matter of record more than velocity. Corrections, updates, and transparency should be handled at a normal pace, acknowledging the error and ensuring proper archival. Chatbots and verification. Speed versus accuracy. Chatbots can offer speedy access to information, but that speed shouldn't jeopardize accuracy. If the chatbot sourced information drastically changes an article or social post, it's vital to prioritize verification. Potential for disruption. If the chatbot provides information that completely alters the existing narrative around a topic, it must be handled with the highest priority. Accountability and record keeping. Even with chatbots, there needs to be a record of where the information originated and what steps were taken to verify it. This allows for transparency and correction if errors occur. Additional considerations for social media and news. Social media is dynamic. Unlike a book, social media content can be easily edited or deleted post-publication. This should not be an excuse for sloppiness, but does give flexibility in case a mistake is made. Viral velocity. Information going viral on social media requires immediate fact-checking. The potential for swift and far-reaching disruption is higher than traditional news formats. In summary, while not perfectly analogous, applying the printing press mentality to the digital world helps emphasize the need for accurate information flow. Recognizing the potential scale of information and the difficulty of retraction should heighten the importance of verification, even when chatbots promise quick answers. Let me know if you want to explore other parts of Hubbard's text in the same way.